Buddy, welcome back to the Can-Am Connection. Jody, how you doing today?
You know what? Doing pretty good. Still a little sore. Had a good workout. About to get after it again. But what did we learn over the weekend, Mr. Espey?
Whew. Victoria's going to give you shit if she's watching this. What did we learn?
Good morning, Victoria.
That we learned that Engen is ever evolving in how he puts on these events. And he's making small improvements every single time. But we also learned that, well, this is speculation more than learning. How do you top this one?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we learned that I am a horrible at predictions. So let's get that.
And I'm amazing at it, apparently.
But I think we asked that question before. Remember the was it East vs. West 7? Where he had the Hall of Famers out?
Yep.
And we all asked, and I think it was the same one where you had Cobra, Goodrich, John got inducted to the Hall of Fame, and then you had Saplinkoff and Levon as special guests. Remember that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we all asked that same question: how does Engen top that? He found a way.
He found a way. This card was, man, even like I've gotten messages, even my old co-host, Chris Gabi, sent me a message saying, holy shit, that was a good card. Like it was.
There was a Gabi sighting? Whoa.
There was a Gabi sighting, yeah. He sent me a message saying that card was amazing. Probably the best one he's ever seen. Now,
can I add something? Because I was watching it live.
Yeah.
Plexman, what's up, my man? And just so everybody knows in the chat, Dan Plexman will be paying a visit to Central Oregon in January. Be looking out for content also. What I liked about that, because I remember I was watching it live, and I'd asked you, like, don't spoil it. I was like, all right, cool. But I want to say this, though. I did tell you one thing. I like the format of it, meaning that they had the crowd. It almost kind of reminded me of WAL, you know?
Yeah, you know what? The stage setup was different, and it almost looked like the bleachers on the stage were kind of a VIP situation where they got to sit right up close.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, like that stage that it was on in previous, it was huge. Like there was no need for that much real estate being unused up there. And Engen found a way to use it more effectively. And was it just me, or did the crowd that was in person look a lot larger than in previous events?
I think so, because when you have that stage and then you decide to put the crowd around there, and you still have the crowd in the audience out in the what is it, the theater type seats, you know, you still have that, but you also had the crowd around the table. And I think it kind of gave it a real feel, you know, for it. Like, hey, this is big time. We got to bring that extra seating, you know, for this, because it was, you know, if we're talking Devin, you know, versus Dennis, you got to have that kind of seating, you know. If you're talking that, hey, is this the guy, Todd Hutchins? Is this finally the guy that's going to put down Unger Baya? So you kind of had that. You need to have that, you know. So I was excited. I still can't predict worth a damn, but, you know, it was exciting nonetheless.
Well, let's go through some of these.
Yes, without the cringy page actors, yes, they're legit.
You got your page? With all
I got it right here. And just to, you know, before we get started, yes, because it was just like the wall crowd, but without the cringy paid actors. That goes to show you that you don't need to go. So if WL's watching, you don't need paid actors, because everybody in that event was focused and they knew who these athletes were. They knew that, hey, you know, this is legit. You don't need paid actors.
Well, you know, in fairness, Wall paid those actors in the first few major events when it was tournament format. In the pay-per-view ones, which were all super matches,
yeah,
at least at the one I was at, there was no paid actors, because the venue was so small the friends and supporters basically filled the stands.
What about the finale in Atlanta, though?
I don't know. Don't know. I know that when I was in Vegas, when they basically filmed the entire tournament and then the finals, like they did regionals and finals in the same day or in the same weekend.
Mm-hmm.
They paid actors for that, and they paid actors to come in for the one that was at the in the hotel. But then I think they figured out that they didn't have to do that.
Good, because you really don't.
Yeah,
So,
but they wanted to be sure.
Well, you ready for this?
Did you tally up the scores, by the way?
I say we tally them up right now. I know I lost. That's all I know.
We need to make a bet on this next time.
Yeah, we probably should. Because I'll tell you right now, and my teammate made a clip of me. We're at my teammate's house watching it, having food, you know, did a little pulling, not a whole lot, but we were into the pay-per-view, and there's a video out there floating, circulating on Facebook, and I'm doing this.
Yeah,
you know, and did you see it?
Yeah.
So,
you look very devastated at who's winning that match.
Yeah, it was the way he lost. That's all. But we'll get into that when we get to that match.
Yeah. So let's start back. Let's start at the bottom, and we had Rosa versus Fia. What were our predictions on this one?
I picked Fia because I knew nothing about her opponent. It was one of those because that wasn't her original opponent. Remember?
Yeah, I also picked Fia, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Now, match number one, we were both looking like we were going to be wrong.
Yeah.
But Fia is a champion for a long, long time. Now
right.
she came in and made adjustments. Really well and effectively, and essentially bled out her opponent with hand control.
Well, after that first match, I was like, oh, God. Oh, God.
Yeah, it was dominant that first match, and I think that Rosa got too confident and maybe gave away a little bit in the setup, but Fia just took what she needed and came back and won it 3-1.
And the thing you got to realize is that everybody in the chat, they know this. You know this. I know this. That when you're involved in super match style arm wrestling, you got to have more than your A game. You got to have a plan B, a plan C, and depending on if you're going whole 6 rounds, or probably plan D. But
never was that more apparent than when it got to one of the super heavyweight matches that we'll talk about later.
Yeah. Ward Drake's in the house. Ward, what's going on?
Wardo.
Yes.
All right. So not necessarily in order, but in order of the sheet I have here, we got Matt Mask versus Frank Lamparelli. Now, here's the deal. This is one of the, I never got to watch the pay-per-view on the day. I watched it yesterday. I paid for it.
Right.
But I had to wait for it to be re-released on the thing, and I didn't have time till yesterday. So I watched the whole thing yesterday. It's fresh in my mind. One of the matches I found out about, though, beforehand was Matt Mask, because I saw somebody put a status update on Facebook that said, should Matt Mask just retire?
Well, here, do you remember Game of Arms like 10 years ago, which is funny?
Yep.
As weird as that may sound, that was 10 years ago.
Than that?
I remember February, Game of Arms came out, 2013. I remember it clear as day. I think it was 25th was the first episode. I had a watch party. Cobra Rose in one of the episodes that season said, actually it was episode 2. And him and Don Underwood were driving to Don Fritchie's place to train. And Cobra Rhodes said distinctively, and tell me if this makes sense, he says, you never retire from arm wrestling. Arm wrestling retires you.
Well, yeah. Regardless,
I mean Cobra gets deep when he talks anyway. So, but I remember that episode and that sticks in my head. So anytime someone makes the argument or makes, hey, should somebody retire?
This is an interesting comment because it might be spot on.
Well, here's the thing. Is gatekeeping a bad thing now? Because for a while, I heard, was it a couple years ago, Marcio Barboza was the gatekeeper. And now, when that word is used out, is it in disrespect? I mean, what exactly? Didn't we talk about that last week?
We did touch on that. It can be either way. If a gatekeeper keeps them coming back, it's a good thing. So, what did we predict in this match?
I predicted Matt Mass 3-2. You predicted Frank 3-2.
It was pretty close. It was 3-1.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had a feeling because Frank is kind of a dark horse, but he's got a big history with WAF. Experienced guy, big guy. And anyone that has the level of experience of that, I mean, Matt, with all due respect, which is more than he gives me, by the way, but yeah, he found a new tool. But previous to that new tool he found, he was a one-trick pony. And this is kind of where we're at. And it's a long way removed from the guy that used to give Devin hell in World Arm Wrestling League.
Mm-hmm.
I keep hearing about like the new Matt, the new guy that he's going to change everything, but I don't think he's changing anything. He's just, doing more of some things.
I told you maybe a month ago, and I said, Matt, with that frame of his, being 6'5" or 6'6",
yeah,
long lever, why doesn't he fucking go Dave Randall and start pressing people? Use that fucking height to your advantage.
But it's the complete. So here's the issue for me. Yes, he has that lane, but his two lanes have a big gap in between. So he has an amazing low hand top roll. He's got great pronation. His other lane is coming forward into a press. So what about all that dead space in between where guys still have the ability to use side pressure or hook with him?
It's because Matt never comes back. When he does his low hand, he always goes side. He never comes back. If you watch that, if I'm being honest, I'm breaking it down like that.
Yeah.
You can either Dave Randall style, get up on there like this and just drive down and chop people left and right, or fucking lean back, because if you lean back, there is no way you're going to stop that. I mean, he has an enormous hand. Yeah. He can use that, but Matt's always this way, sideways, where you can still compromise. Whereas if you went back this way, now your opponent's doing this.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And there's I don't know. It just seems like two very contrasting styles. And I think he was successful once because we'd never seen it. But Frank just adjusted.
And again,
closed it off.
And this goes back. Why was Matt so dominant in the East vs. West finals? Because it was a tournament base. Why was he so dominant during the East vs. West qualifiers? It was tournament based. Well, I'm not saying that he belongs in tournaments only. That's not what I'm saying. Because when Wall went to the Super Series, the Super Match format, he was dominant. He was dominant.
Yeah, in a weight class that was 225. Okay, but here's the other thing. So we have interesting comments here about Matt hitting for position, not just sideways to the pad. Agreed. Should Matt go up or down a weight class? Probably down, because I don't think he's the kind of guy that can get up to 300 pounds. He's Matt doesn't give a shit what I have to say about him, that's for sure. But he I don't know, sitting where he's at, it's this weird gray area where he's going to have trouble.
What if Matt? What do you guys think about this match? If Matt dropped the weight class, and let's just say he pulled Ungerbayev, would that pique interest in people?
Can you get that low? I would be interested for sure.
He has before,
that low?
because remember when Wall came out, there's only 4 weight classes, and he was in 225. So I know he can.
Man, I don't know, but you got to remember that at the time he was coming up to that class. Now he's got to try to go the other way.
Right, that's true.
But I mean, maybe put it at a catch weight just to see what happens, and then I don't know. I don't know if he has enough stock to make that kind of an ask. Yeah, as you get older,
it makes you wonder. Then is he Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde? Because 2 things can come out of that. Because last time we saw Matt Mass prior to last weekend, he walked right through Ron Bath, right? So either A, Ron Bath was not healthy, or now I don't know what it is.
No, but I could explain that though. He's got the perfect style to beat Matt or Ron Bath, and he would beat Ron Bath back when they were in World Arm Wrestling League. Right. He knows exactly, his style is perfect to beat Ron Bath. He's done it a lot. And now you come in here and Matt's 30, 40 pounds heavier, and Ron's basically the same guy. Of course Matt's going to beat him.
Right.
Anyway, that's an interesting one. I heard rumors about Matt Mask versus Chance Shaw coming up.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
So we will get a sample size of Matt at super heavyweight again.
I like that matchup.
What happens there? Chance is a guy that can really, do some damage at super heavyweight. He has lost some. He's won some. I think he's won more than he's lost. He's had good showings at East versus West. What happens if Matt comes in and dusts him, or vice versa? I mean, Chance, nothing happens to Chance. He continues on his path. But, I mean, if he...
God, you know what? I'm going to say it right now. Elephant in the room. You want to hear it?
Sure.
If Matt Mass is going to stay at supers, right? Then damn it, can we get Matt Mass and Derek Smith on the fucking table, please?
Yeah. Archdog, I agree. If Matt loses to Chance, actually, I won't be shocked. I think Chance can beat him. I wouldn't be confident in picking either one, because I think there's like an argument on both sides of that.
Yeah.
But if Matt loses to Chance, I think Matt needs to forget about super heavyweight.
I mean, either drop a weight or add some more weapons to your arsenal, whatever,
Yeah.
What else we got?
Artem Tainov versus Sasha Andreev. What were our picks?
We both had them. We both had Artem winning 3-1.
Yeah. Pretty damn accurate, I would say. What was the final score? Was it 3-0 or 3-1?
I thought it was 3-1.
Yeah. Now
I knew that after match 2, I was like, okay. I'm not saying Shasta just said, you know what? Fine, if I don't win, whatever. I still got Brzezinski. So I don't know if that was the mind, but I was like, So
yeah.
As it sits right now, Espey, you're up 3-2 right now.
I mean, that was pretty straightforward match, really good match, but Artem was superior, and he took that world title.
Yes. Congratulations.
Yeah. Now we've got Ivan Matyushenko versus Camille. I got this one wrong.
We both did, because
Ivan came in and just put a he was, let's just say he was dominant.
But didn't you say he took some time off though?
I have not seen Ivan pull in a while, but that doesn't mean he hasn't been pulling. Like, there's still a sport where a guy can go around and do a lot of things without us noticing over here. But I haven't seen Ivan at a high level anything recently. But he looked good. He looked healthy. I thought Camille was going to win the match right up until they started setting up. Ivan is a smart, experienced, world-class arm wrestler. Ivan just came in there and went after it and got it done quickly, 3-0.
There you go.
Camille never found his lane.
And
And
so,
should have probably had a plan B.
in watching these matches in between, each athlete goes back to their respective corners. And I always wonder, what are they saying? What is the cornerman saying? Like they do in UFC, in between each round, you go to your corner, you got your, hey, watch this, hey, stay off the ground, stay on your feet, blah, 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 blah. I would love to know, what are they actually saying to him? Because when you say,
good coach, they'll be giving advice that the athlete has the ability to follow.
Right.
If it's a shitty coach and someone you just pulled out of the crowd, they'll be telling them what they would do.
Okay, so here you go. If you have somebody who's in your corner that is not your teammate, and sometimes, more often times than not, that how people can see things from afar that you can't see because you're actually in the match and your mind is elsewhere, And I wonder, when they're in your corner, like, hey, can you try this? Can you try that? So I'll give you an example. I've had Jamie Sheldon in my corner for a super match before. We don't train together. We don't live in the same state. But he told me straight up, I don't know how you really pull, but I'm going to tell you what I see. You tell me what you feel. We'll go from there.
That's smart.
And so I wonder, in these big events, how's that work out,
Well, that's all you can do in those events if you don't know the guy. That's maybe where there's a major advantage in the East.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I will tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that if you train with Bob Brown and he is in your corner, you will have an advantage.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go with David Samushia versus Abdul Manaf. Now, this was a bit of a shocker on match number 1. We saw Abdul get the big pin and celebration to follow.
And this is Abdul was the Ingen Terzi substitute, right?
Yeah. And then we had, very much like Rosa and Fia, we had a bit of a turnaround. And David made an adjustment. And next thing you know, he's coming back.
I apologize. For some reason, I didn't write a prediction down.
Oh, well, I think I took David, and I think probably you did too.
I might have, but I don't. Oh, you think what I think it was? Because the poster I was looking at had the original opponent, and I didn't know the replacement, so I automatically de facto to the person that was still there. So yeah. I just never wrote it down.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was an awesome adjustment by David, but it became one-sided after that first match.
Well, it's all about making adjustments, right? Like, here's the thing. And you tell me, Ryan, you've been on the bigger stage before in these super matches. If you win a match, do you just keep doing the same thing until you have to adjust, or do you keep your opponent guessing?
It depends, because you will feel them adjusting. And if you can pick up on that, you should not assume that the same lane is going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So you might want to adjust and keep them guessing. Unless your one move is so dominant that you can just keep doing it over and over again, rinse and repeat.
Right. Until, okay, I got to you got to prove to me that you can beat this move before I change to something else.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Right now you're up 4-3, by the way.
4-3.
Oh, trust me. As we go on, the gap's going to go like this. So
Rustam Babayev versus Irakli. Who did you pick on this one?
I picked Rustam 3-2. You picked Irakli 3-1, and this is where we start separating ourselves.
Well, this one was one of the best arm wrestling matches I've ever seen. I have never seen a match, and this was said on live commentary, where the buckle was so important.
Can I ask a question about the buckle? Is it a complete mind fuck? And what I mean by that is that, and you guys in the chat got to realize, once upon a time, and I like to say back in the Northeast Message Board days or the Gary Roberts days where we used Velcro straps, right? You remember those days, Ryan?
I remember Velcro, yeah.
The Velcro straps. And so if you want a King's move in that, you can really fuck somebody up and just all day. But when I started using the double D-ring, the metal ones, or the plastic buckle, and I was like, oh, and the only thing I knew was that it was much tighter than the Velcro. But I never understood about the buckle until people started making a big deal of it. Then by virtue of all the conversation about it, I kind of psyched myself and was like, oh, well, the buckle's on my hand. And then I automatically revert to that. And I'm wondering, then we start talking about the Ferris strap or the hustle strap and the way you set it up and this, that, and the other. So sorry, I was going somewhere with that, but I kind of forgot all of a sudden. So the buckle strap paid dividends in this match.
Yeah, it might have decided the match because one guy was compromised off the go. It seemed to me like, depending on what side of the table. But I mean, for Rustum, you can almost consider this a win because it looked like he was super tentative off the start and nervous about his injury.
Yeah.
So him coming in here and having that kind of a performance, awesome. Like I think that was probably a win in itself.
It was almost like because of an injury, he didn't know how to really test it. So
yeah,
the body language I got from that, and you guys tell me, if I'm off base when I say this, it almost seemed like he was pulling not to lose as opposed to pulling to win. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I didn't realize that, Jason, that he won the toss and chose the buckle side to start.
Wow.
That probably cost him the match.
Well, I mean, if you really want to break it down, you can even go like this. If let's just say I'm facing the screen right now, right? Let's just say I'm pulling right-handed and the headrest over here. I'll make sure I'll slip purposely because I know the buckle's going to be on my opponent. Whereas we switch sides and now all of a sudden I'm here and the ref is still over here, then I'm going to hold on for dear glory because I know if I slip, the buckle's going to be on my hand. However the case, there is strategy to that, and people actually do that.
I've seen John Brzenk do it to Matt Mask at UAL 9. More than willing to go to the strap when the buckle was on his opponent's hand, but fought really hard to not go there when it wasn't.
Right.
I want to talk about this one because next one is Egla versus Sarah. I have a few thoughts right off the bat.
Just so dominant.
As soon as I saw, Todd Hutzing's is different, Archdog. We'll get to that in a sec. But Sarah versus Egla. Egla comes in, looks way more muscular than the last time I saw her. And in contrast, Sarah looked way less muscular than the last time I saw her. Which begs the question, was she ready? Now, not to take anything away,
right,
but you have someone that doesn't look like themselves. Are we now at this stage in arm wrestling where people are just saying yes to the matches because it's a huge payday? Are they less than 100%?
Good question. Good question. Because I think you hit the nail on the head right there. Because I'm like, Egla came out and I was like going, I don't know, because in the press conference she looked one way, but then the day of the event, and she stood and walked, I was like going, good Lord, man, somebody been doing some shoulder presses. I'm like, good man,
I want to see her versus Barbora, to be honest with you. That's the match I want to see now.
Was she the one that beat
Gabby?
Yeah.
But then again, Gabby also beat Egla the last time. So there's another match there. a rematch
That's two
there,
different.
possibly.
Isn't that two different weight classes though?
It is. But
just very dominant. Like I was just like, okay, and so.
And didn't they pull all 5?
Yeah.
4 at least. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it was a title match. So yeah, it had to go like 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
Or 6. So I'm at my buddy's house, my teammate, we're training, snacks, food, table. So we were betting on matches, but we weren't betting money. We were betting shots. So you can only imagine my condition when I left.
Who did you pick in Sarah versus Egla?
What's that?
Who did you pick here?
I picked Sarah.
Who did I pick?
Egla. So, so any match we all bet on, the loser had to take a lemon drop shot. Okay. I can tell you that I went home and took some Tums because the heartburn was kicking in. Because I'm like, man, I was just kind of shaking my head going, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Yeah, and it just got worse as it went on. It got worse as it went on.
What a shot to pick, but who knew you'd be drinking so much?
You know what? I wasn't planning on drinking at all after my situation in San Diego the weekend before, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah. And then we got the big super heavyweight match where the monster, the Russian monster, gets a little bit exposed.
Everybody told me about what was going to happen. You did, Ryan. Everybody in the chat sat there and told me, dude, he's going to have no stamina. Jody took his hand and wrist, and it was over. And what's that saying that is? Once your wrist goes back one time, it's going to go back over and over again? Is that what they say now?
Well, I don't know, but Zara has one move, and that's why he's effective in tournaments and needs to do some work for super matches.
And
Georgie's a bad match for him.
I will tell you a reason why I picked Zara, right? So, yes, Zara has that one move, and Georgie knew that. The only reason why I'm picking Zara in that match because I'm going off of what Georgie pulled Jerry Cataract, has one basic move. And Georgie couldn't, and Georgie stopped Jerry's hit, but he didn't know how to finish. So maybe at some point between that time and now, he figured out how to, finish. And, like I said, for all intents and purposes, at least from that match, Jerry had one move and fucking Jerry still won. So I'm saying in my brain, you know what? Until Georgie can prove me wrong, and I was wrong all day long, basically, that, you got to beat the guy. But when he just took his hand like this and that was it, it's like Zara had no answer.
Yeah, and it just got worse and worse, and the tank just kept getting more and more empty. Justin, the problem is I don't watch much other people's contents on here. I just don't have the time to follow all the shenanigans that lead up to an East versus West, particularly when Devon's on the card, to be honest with you. There's so much content, I just can't keep up.
I just want to say props to Marco GT5. He told me so. So, yes.
Yes, he did. You notice who we're missing out of the chat, Jody?
Who? Cody Merritt?
No.
Billy Berg?
No.
Scott McGinnis?
No.
Damn. Don't we have all the regulars in here?
No, we don't.
Justin's here. Marco's here. Plexman's here.
Missing one. You're missing one. You think about that for a minute.
Damn. Let me eat my grape right quick. Let me see.
He's one of our administrators.
Phil Woody?
Justin got it right.
Oh, wow. Yeah. There's so many people now that more often times than not, they're on here and they listen, but they don't really say a lot. They just kind of listen. That is true.
Jay Clean, what the hell? But don't worry, Jay Clean. You can catch another episode of the Plap Local podcast coming your way this afternoon on my other YouTube channel.
Yes. Right now,
Sato versus John.
and by the way, the score is at right now is that Ryan has 7. I got 3.
I'm about to have 8.
Yeah.
John versus Sasho. What did I say was going to be?
You pick Sasho to win 3-1. I picked John 3-1. John didn't even get 1.
Yeah.
Now, first thing I thought, and I lost that match, so guess what? I took a shot. First thing I thought.
First thing you thought was, how much more of this can I take?
Yeah, that too. But I was like, you know what? Well, thank God there was food this time, so that was all right. But I sat there and was like going, you know what? Had this match been in January instead of November, with John losing that much weight, would it be a different outcome? Only because when you lose that much weight in that amount of time, some way, somehow, your power is going to get confiscated too.
Yeah.
But I thought John being John, oh, he got this, no big deal.
Well, I had a suspicion that he would not be quite as strong as we have seen him in the past little while after losing all that weight in such a short period of time to make this class. You might be right about him getting acclimated to that weight, but did you see how lean he was? Like, that's a pretty big commitment to stay at that level for a long time as well.
It was like John when he was pulling Dennis for the first time at 220.
Yeah.
In that match, and we got a house full of people, right? Wives, girlfriends, kids, pullers. That match was the only match where when that match was done, the entire house was quiet.
Yeah.
Because it was like the look on our faces, we looked at one another like it was depressing. Yes, Marco, exactly.
Wasn't the saddest part of the show for me, but we'll get to that in a minute.
I mean, to the part where it's like your superhero, like, wow, like, damn. It was almost like fucking Thanos came in here and just slapped the shit out of fucking John. I was like,
it's like when we saw the Hulk get beat up by Thanos.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, John also kept he was in the match wasn't like a pure ass whooping either.
No, he battled, and then even John's like, "Fuck it, get back on the table. Let's go." And so I felt like when he started doing that, wasn't even trying to rest. Fuck it, let's just get it done. It just seemed like he was just trying to get over with.
Yeah.
And like Justin said, 500 calories a day for that long definitely took a lot of strength out. So that goes back to what RVJ was saying in his post, And
then we're going on to the match that everyone was the most excited about. It seemed like overwhelmingly this was the match that people wanted to see the most.
I told you that was the match that was I was more invested in than anything.
Well, you know what? You take it away on this one, but I will say I did notice that when there was the coin toss, Todd just said, I don't give a shit which side of the table I get.
That makes everyone be a fan of Todzilla right there.
Yeah.
I don't give a crap. I'm coming to war, and that is it. And God damn it, if that doesn't get anybody hyped up, I don't know what was. But I'll tell you this. I've never seen a lopsided match as far as the score indicates, but it was a damn good show. Like, there was a couple times Todd had him here, and all of a sudden, Unger Bive hit him, and Todd went back here, and Todd was like, fuck you, and went back again. And there ain't too many times when Todd takes off and has you here and uses his side pressure, he gets pulled back. There was 2 occasions where that happened. And I was like, oh, shit. Are we really going to – is Todd getting yanked out of his move? So even though, like I said, it was a sweep, that every match kept us on the end of our seat. There's a couple of times we thought Todd had to win. We're like going, why is it still round 2? What the hell are we doing? And there was like an elbow foul called or something. It was kind of weird. But, yeah, Todd is the man.
Anybody notice that even though this is called East versus West, we basically had 4 East versus West matches?
Yeah.
Only in name.
Because wasn't Fia East versus East?
Man, he looked incredible, and he's one of the oldest guys on the card.
Yeah.
Yeah. Todd is thoroughly convinced that buckle doesn't matter. I agree that if you have Todd's strength and style, it doesn't matter. If you are a guy that relies on hand control, even a low hand top roll, it's gonna matter a lot.
Well, yes, Brian Gable says they gave a warning for false starts in the rest script. Yeah, you're right. It depends on the style, because if you're Jerry, does Jerry even fucking care where the buckle's at? Probably not.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, we probably want it high. We want the strap high with the buckle wherever. Doesn't matter.
Yes, Todd just became the oldest title holder ever. You know what? I didn't realize that until that was just mentioned.
Yeah.
Lagia, right on.
Archdog, yeah, that was what I was trying to say. But took the long path to get there. So, which brings us to our main event. And, well, you can comment on this one first, Jody, because I'm just going to get myself in trouble.
You want me to go first? I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because this is where, if you guys go on social media, on my Facebook, you'll see the video. Everybody knows why I picked Dennis to win, because I got this dream of saying, I want to see what they call the match of the century, I guess. Now the air came out. I want to see this Dennis versus Levon. I'm curious to see what this is going to be about. But, you know, in my heart of hearts, I probably knew Devin was going to win, but I just wanted Dennis to win just so I can see that match, you know. Real impressive round 1, because I saw something in Devin. I've never seen him that aggressive before. It's more of, you know, I'm going to hold you, talk to you, shit to you, whatever. None of that stuff. And here's the one thing I will say about Devin. None of that bullshit he's done before. Then you could tell he was business. I'm going to fucking take you, break you, all that kind of stuff. We heard that before in press conferences. We heard that before in interviews and stuff. But you could tell his demeanor, he was a man on a mission. And I'm just disappointed that it seemed like Dennis just sat there and just let him hit and hit and hit and hit and hit and hit and hit. And Dennis did nothing to adjust. I'm like, what are we doing, Dennis? Like, you can't hold everybody. And it was like going, the difference between Devin pulling, I mean, there's so many difference between Devin pulling Levon and Devin pulling Dennis, where Dennis is not aggressive. He's not a aggressive style puller. Levon is. However, I think Devin's a lot stronger now than he was when he pulled Levon. So it'd be kind of interesting to see if those guys got together now, what would the outcome be? But I'm like, I think I was more disappointed with Dennis's performance. That's what I'm looking at.
So a couple things. All the bullshit leading up to the event, I hated it. It was misrepresented. There was no truth being told about the things that were happening there. And then there was talk about a fight and all this stuff. In the event, in the actual match, I honestly thought Devin wasn't trying all that hard to do his normal Devin shtick. He was doing it, but when the referee was tapping his off shoulder to square, and then Devin makes it worse, and the referee lets it go, it's like, did the refs just give up at some point? And then on the flip side of that, Dennis, well, remember what I said about a payday?
Mm-hmm.
Was this a payday? Because Dennis came in, and if you look at Dennis right now and you've never seen him before, you think, holy shit, that guy looks impressive. But if you look at Dennis compared to what he looked like 6 years ago, you think, ooh, what happened to that guy? Because he didn't look as big or strong as he has in the past. And he had, and I don't know if Dennis has always pulled like this. I don't remember, but he did not fight at all for anything.
Mm-mm.
He just let Devin take what he wanted. And I think that if Devin would have came up, just put his elbow down perfectly square, took a perfectly fair grip, he still would have won. Like it was 3-0. Kind of 4-0 at one point. Really.
Then what pissed me off, I took a double shot, by the way. I said double or nothing.
I picked Devin to win, but
no, I took a double shot. I fucking said, look, man, I'm putting all my eggs in. Not that, and here we go, because here's my soapbox last week, right? I'm not a Devin hater. That's not what I'm saying. And I know how people, the troll army gets all jumped on my case. I made a comment on one of the, I think it might have been Aussies. And, there was I don't think it was Devin, unless Devin has like multiple accounts, whatever, and said, oh, so you're going to blame it on the mind games? I said something about Devin normally has his opponents beaten with mind games prior to the match, which makes his arm wrestling that much easier. And I guess the comment was like, oh, you're going to blame it on the mind games? I'm like, well, you tell me, how is Hermes Gasparini that much more aggressive to Levon than he is to Devin, where you clearly see Devin had him beat upstairs already, which made the match that much easier,
Brian,
people just laying down for him.
If this is true, and I believe you that it is, trained to be defensive and wear Devin out is the worst game plan I have ever heard in my life. Now, the mind games you mentioned, we all thought that Dennis was cold as ice, and none of it got to him. And I don't know if it did, but he just came to that table, put his arm down, and got beat up on. Like he didn't really try to adjust or do anything. And even in the final matches, he just held and took hit after hit after hit. And if I'm being honest, I think Devin probably could have pinned him a lot earlier than he did.
I know when Devin took his wrist, I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh fuck, dude. Because it meant, like I said, when you pull somebody with an enormous hand, and we're talking Cleve Dean, we're talking, Jeff Dave, we're talking Saplinkov, the one thing you don't want to do is attack their hand. That's probably the one thing you don't want to do. You attack their wrist, and fucking Devin exposed that shit, and I was like, oh fuck, here we go, So I'm like, damn. I mean, look at back in the day before Dennis knew how to pull, had that enormous hand. How did John beat him when John was 220 pounds? He fucking attacked his wrist. How did John Brzenk beat a Cleve Dean with that enormous hand? Fucking attacked his wrist.
So, I mean, I wasn't disappointed. Like, how do I put this correctly? Devin obviously deserved to win the match. No argument at all. And then here's the funny part. Then I see him standing there with Levon, and I think, oh my God, like Levon stopped training 6 months ago. Like that's what I thought.
That guy. So you know how, I don't know if you follow this, but Ryan Grondin has a match with Paul Italia coming up, right?
Yep.
And he's calling him Twinkie Boy. And Paul's calling Grondin Twinkie Boy. That clip with Levon still wearing biker shorts or biker pants, yoga pants, whatever the fuck, and had the jersey look like a dress. I'm like going, what the fuck, dude? Now, I'm not going to sit there and try to like, get on somebody's body because, I don't have a six-pack either. Never did. I got a 2-liter, but I don't have a six-pack. But good Lord, man, like that guy looked like he's been eating. Oh, I don't even know what to call that shit. I was like, really, man?
He didn't look like an impressive guy. He looked like the Levon I met at the 2018 WAF championships. Like, I'm sure he's still amazing, but he's not gonna beat that guy's not beating Devin.
Okay, so what exactly is the extent of his injury?
I don't know. I mean, we get what we get. I'm sure he's getting acting gigs and doing whatever he wants to do, but he better be like he better not count on the same Devin he pulled before showing up. I can tell you that.
No. So can we highlight Andre's comment? Because this is about the Sarah match. Sarah changed her training program based on Chris Durham program. She went from training 6 days a week to 2 to 3 days. Do you think that may alter?
Oh, go ahead and ask your question.
I was going to say, do you think that may alter someone's performance? Because when you're used to doing 6 days a week and then you go back to 2 to 3, you kind of taper off,
Well, okay.
And then we'll go back to Lagia's.
The weird thing is, why do you change something that's working? The only person she lost to during that time frame was Gabby, and she was so close to turning that around.
Mm-hmm.
Why change? Like, there's some cases where you need to change. Take Matt Mask. He probably needs to change something up. Sarah at the time, we thought there was one girl on the planet that was better than her, and it was just slightly.
Mm-hmm.
Just do some harder stuff within that program. Now, that's my issue.
The next 3 comments I want to hit on. Good Lord.
Yeah. I want to get to let's start at a few of them here, because this we can avoid some of the other bullshit, but we were talking about, I heard steroids hinder the healing process for tendons. The issue, Timmy, is when you take steroids, there is low blood flow to tendons. So it will make the muscle itself very strong, but the things that attach that muscle, the tendons, are not going to increase in strength at the same rate. So that's the issue when you have a tendon issue and you take performance enhancing drugs. That's the bro science behind it a little bit. You can negate some of that by taking other things like stem cells, like growth hormone.
Right.
That kind of stuff will offset that stuff. But if you have a bad tendon injury, you kind of got to alter your training. You got to do some different things.
So Lagia goes, because I asked, what was Levon's extent of his injury again? It's the wrist tendon. I think he was trying to fucking cup or some bullshit. But if his wrist injury was the issue, then how you let the fucking rest of your body go? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Now, the question that popped up here that made me stop in mid-sentence, I could even get a drink of my water, from Derp Jones. If Devin beats Levon, is he the GOAT? Is he in the GOAT conversation? I think he's in the GOAT conversation now, but there's 2 variations, because why is John the GOAT? Because John did it where there weren't a lot of super matches. He was taking on all comers. We're doing tournament after tournament after tournament. Like, he would go to these tournaments overseas and do multiple classes left and right and beat everybody.
He's an undersized super heavy, or an undersized guy going into the super heavyweight division and winning all over the world.
And not a lot of super matches were like they are now back then. So go ahead.
I mean, there's a couple of things. Do you put weight on the amateur career? Do you put weight on world titles that people think there's only one pure one? Do you count that kind of thing? Or do you just say, this is the best arm wrestler that has ever walked the earth at this time frame? I think Devin's in that conversation. I don't know that he gets there without beating Levon, but we're also at the mercy of Levon's injury. And Devin is not Devin's 48 years old.
If Devin beats Levon, what else is there to do?
Nothing. There's nothing else. If he beats him, he's probably the GOAT. Now, there was another debate. So are you taking the career as a whole, or are you taking that guy on that day is the man? Like there's nobody walking that's ever walked the face of the earth that can beat him. And I think, I mean, my God, Devin on last Saturday might be that guy, that version of him might be the guy walking planet Earth that no one that has ever come before him could beat.
It's getting close. I'm telling you, it's just different eras, right? Because we can sit there and, if we just take basketball, for example, and like my son who's 21, he'll probably think, wow, the Golden State Warriors, best team fucking ever. Okay, well, I grew up in an era where fucking in high school it was the Bulls. And when I was younger, it was the Showtime Lakers. So it all depends on what decade you're talking about, because the arm wrestler we all know now, Devin's the guy. But even though John is taking these losses, doesn't take away from what he had already accomplished, because you got to remember, John retired so many times to come back. John could have just said, fuck it, I'm done. No one's going to beat that. I was on top for 25 fucking years. Fuck you. I mean, he could, that could be an option. But then if, like you said, you're talking about world championships, like WAF. John did win one. It was with his left hand, but he did win one. Devin hasn't. So you're going to base it on that, because it's John 1, Devin 0, because John's only won WAF title, but then John's won WPAA titles when that was a thing back then. Petaluma, the World Wrestling Championships, that was a thing. It wasn't quite WAF, but it was a thing. So
let's also remember,
and things were different then, though, too.
There were guys piling up WAF titles that John was beating.
Yeah.
Yukon Jack.
Yep.
Gary Goodrich. Cleve Dean. He'd go over to Golden Bear. Golden Bear was a big thing back then. Like, it was incredible. So,
yes, Timmy Turner, Andre Puskar passed away exactly 5 years ago today.
Rest in peace.
I tell you, he's another guy. We'll love to see if Andre Puskar was still around now, what he would do in all this.
For the body of work that he had in piling up WAF titles and having success in super matches, it would have been very interesting to see what could have been.
Yeah.
He was the guy that was fighting the monster Denis Saplenkov back then.
And that's why
I'm going to say something here because we're talking about the greatest of all time. If you're using that criteria that on that given day, that is the best arm that's ever been on a table. Don't laugh me out of the building here, guys, because we've had this conversation, and I actually had this conversation with Gobby once on our old show. He said, and I had trouble arguing with him, that Travis Bagent's left arm at its best may have been the best arm that's ever been on an arm wrestling table.
When he's motivated.
At its best. At its absolute best.
Because think about it. With Travis is different because he really has nothing to prove. And I know some of the people now want to see him pull. We've all seen him pull before. It's the newer people. But when Travis goes over to Nemiroff, Zlati, and wins, smacked everybody, okay? When he wins a fucking WAF World Championship with his offhand, by the way, and smacks Vovoda, who was at the top of his game at the time, tells you all you need to know. I mean, from a tournament standpoint, Travis was the guy. And Travis will tell you straight up, he's not a real big fan of super matches anyway. That's just him. But do you define the greatest of all time based on one-on-one competition, super matches, or tournament based where it's you against the field? So we could talk about that all day long, right? That would be the best, of all time, or the best ever to do it, not the greatest of all time. And like I said, this what makes this water cooler talk awesome, because when we say Muhammad Ali, what do we always say behind that? Greatest of all time.
Not me.
Well, I'm just saying, but I mean, everyone says that though, right?
Yeah.
But yet you got people like Rocky Marciano undefeated, Mayweather undefeated. You know, I don't know. I mean, it all depends. It all depends who you talk to, what era it is. Excuse me, it is. So it always, yeah, you know.
So I mean, when you speak GOAT, it's a combination of boat and accomplishments and longevity.
Yes.
There's where the issue is with probably saying Devin's the greatest of all time. Because 5 years ago, was he in the conversation? Maybe he was 5 years ago. 7 years ago, maybe not. We've been talking that way about John Brzenk for 20 years.
Oh,
more than 20 years.
I'll say
Since
this.
I started arm wrestling, people were talking about John Brzenk being the greatest of all time. And he had not even accomplished half of his career yet.
I'll say this. When you said, was Devin in that conversation 5 years ago, I would say probably, but there were so many names along with that 5 years later, those names then have fallen off. Do you think that's fair to say? But Devin still remains.
But if you do 7 years ago, you also had Devin in a lighter weight class.
Mm-hmm.
And not very many jumps into the super heavyweight division.
Right.
And if he did, it didn't always go well.
It all depends on accolades, honestly, Ryan. And we'll do one more scenario comparison. Tom Brady, right? Do you think he's the greatest of all time? Guy
Absolutely.
went to 10 Super Bowls or whatever? Won 8 of them or 7 of them or whatever? No, he lost 3 because he lost to Eli Manning twice and he lost to Nick Foles and the Eagles. So he has, 7 Super Bowl rings by himself? But there is a small portion that says, well, look at Joe Montana. Joe Montana only went to 4, but guess what? He's 4-0 in the Super Bowl. And in those Super Bowls, 11 touchdowns, not one goddamn interception. I mean, there's that. Michael Jordan, greatest of all time, or LeBron James? Well, Michael Jordan, 6-0 in the finals. 6-time NBA Finals MVP. Never, ever went to a Game 7 in those finals. So it all depends on, when you say GOAT, greatest of all time, it all depends on what do you rank? Are you ranking against records, championships, performances within those championships, whatever. I mean, that's why it's always good to talk, because everyone has an opinion. There's no definitive one. Right now, they say Devon's the man. Okay, it's kind of hard, he hasn't been beaten for a while, but at the same time, he doesn't compete as much as everybody else, though, either. See what I'm saying?
Fair enough. But it's a fun discussion, and the fun part is we can never come up with a winner. We can only come up with an opinion.
Right.
However, if Devin goes on to beat Levon, that becomes a whole lot harder to argue. A lot harder to argue. If Levon retires, we'll never really know.
Oh, he better not go out like that.
Now, I will leave us with one thought here, Jody, and I just want your take on it, because I don't subscribe to all the, the shenanigans, all the stuff, all the, the deep aggression ahead of an arm wrestling match.
Mm-hmm.
And that can't be more perfectly have a spotlight shone on it than at the end of the match. How many times have we heard maybe someone and their opponent can bury the hatchet now? Which is a racially sensitive thing to say, by the way, but that's the exact verbiage that was used.
Right.
Maybe they can bury the hatchet now. But I've heard that statement said about a certain someone and their opponents numerous occasions. So my question is, why is there always going to be a need to bury the hatchet after a certain person arm wrestles?
The only reason that comes out is if someone went too far.
Oh.
I mean, seriously, if he's on air saying that this is bury the hatchet, some way, somehow went too far. Somebody recognized that,
Well, it's Coach Ray that made the statement. It's usually the commentators that say that.
Right. But the thing is, some way, somehow, somebody knew that, okay, whatever situation went down, it went too far, you know? I think Devin had more beef with, you know, I don't want to say call Dennis's handler, but I think Devin had more beef with the fucking his corner guy than Dennis himself. And your opponent is Dennis, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if he used that as fuel to beat Dennis. I'm going to beat your corner man through you. I don't know.
Now, I know that it's also a mindset thing because Michael Jordan used to find a reason to hate somebody and it would fuel them to win.
Right.
But maybe it's the same thing going on.
I'm not wired that way, you know, and you've heard in this sport, you've heard, Ryan, where, hey, there's a tournament and freaking there's money up for grabs, 1,000, 2,000, whatever, for first place. And how many times have you heard pullers use this expression where, oh, man, you're taking food out of my kid's mouth? I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, I'm not wired that way because if I win this money at a tournament, that's a bonus. If I don't, then guess what? My kids still love me. My wife didn't leave me. I still got the house. Everything is all good in the Williams family. You know, I just can't. I'm not wired that way where I got to come up with a, oh, you taking food in my kid's mouth. No, it ain't. I got a job that takes care of that. Right. So I never understood that. I really didn't.
So, Timmy, I'll just close with this. Often it's not they bring the hatchet. It's only one guy that ever pulled one out. So there you go. Anyway, Jody, it's been over an hour, my friend. We need to wrap her up.
We already know Devin's opponent for King of the Table. So
yeah, Georgie. So
yeah. Right hand, by the way, people. So
I look forward to seeing it.
Already, I'm looking forward to
I'll predict it's going to be 3. Or how many do they go to? Is it 5? Best of 5 in King of the Table still?
6.
6. It'd be 6-0, Devin.
I'm waiting for some more matches. The only ones I know right now are that, and then the match I'm looking forward to. And I guess they were saying to see who's the number 3 guy. How much shine can you get on that when it's Hermes Gasparini taking on Vitaly Letin? Interesting.
I like it.
Oh, is it first to 4 the King of the Table? Okay, first to 4.
With an option to continue, but
they do have the option to pull all 6, though, right?
They do.
Okay. So, yeah, but we'll get into that. That's December 2nd, which is, damn, right around the corner. Okay. So about what, 3 weeks away, give or take? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody. Thanks again for joining us on this terrific Tuesday. November 14th, everybody. We're signing out. We will be back next Tuesday as always. We all know. Sorry, guys, there's no soapbox today, but somebody will get stupid and then we'll talk about it on the air. So until then,
around it a little bit, but yeah, see you guys in a week.
Take care.